What's good?
What's going on, bro?
I'm not Chris Joseph, no, but we do got Eric Devendorf here alongside me for a little post-game day edition of the Devo show coming up. Big 75-72 win for the Orange. It wasn't as clean of a win as you'd like to see, but a win at the Dome is always a good night. Eric, what did you take away from that one close game? I know you had a couple of things on your mind that we discussed before the show.
Yeah, man, I thought it was a great win. Obviously, getting our first win against a ranked team in 2 years. We've been right on the doorstep of getting these wins, man. So it's great to see finally be able to fight through and get a quality win. I think second half was unbelievable. Really, first half, obviously slow pace. It seemed like a defensive battle for most of the first half. Second or end of the first half, we started to pick it up, make some shots. But second half, really, all five starters, in double figures. Crucial plays down the stretch. You see Jesse diving on the floor for a loose ball, kicking it out to Judah at the top of the key, knocking down a three, and then he comes down on I think it was the next possession where he gets a post up and gets an and one. So, a lot of contributions. Obviously, the starters played a majority of the game. All five guys in double figures. Judah 29. One turnover. I think that's a big stat for him right there. Only one turnover. He's been taking care of the ball. You see his maturity through the season, start to show more and more, better with his decision making. And then obviously Chris Bell scoring and contributing in other ways besides scoring the basketball. Defensively, he's starting to be more active on that wing, being able to get out and drop back and know his rotations. And then, we can't forget about Malik Brown. He's just everywhere. He has a knack for the ball. He knows where to be on the floor. He's a guy that's going to continue to improve and get better. Offensively, he's still raw, but he just knows how to play the game. And then obviously Joe, probably a more quiet night for Joe. I think 5 for 12 or 5 for 14, 14 points, but he was the guy that kind of, in the first half when really nothing was going, he knocked down some shots and, kept us within striking distance. So a great win. North Carolina State, that's a great team, man. They're physical. They're tough. That big guy in the middle, he was a lot to handle. I think it helped us when
he was a unit.
He was a unit, man. He's a big boy. I mean, rest in peace, Robert Tractor Trailer. I don't know if you remember that name. And that's the kind of the body that he had. But this guy is nimble, quick. His footwork is exceptional. He has really good footwork down low, and he's able to get it off of his footwork. But I'm looking at the stats, and I see North Carolina. They're known for their good guard play. Joyner 6 for 17, Marcel 3 for 11, Smith 5 for 16. I know they made some shots down the stretch, but you got to give kudos to our defense, man, for making it tough on them, making those guys shoot and make tough shots. I think a lot of credit has to go to the defensive side of the ball. For Syracuse getting this win. They did a great job locking down those guards, and then down the stretch, they've been criticized a lot of the year, not making good decisions, not finishing games. We did it. We finished this game. We knocked down some key free throws at the end, and we talked about Jesse's 2 plays at the end to kind of help us finish the game out. So a great win, man. And North Carolina State is not a team that is anything to sneeze at. So I think these guys can be proud of themselves. And we got 3-game winning streak, two games on the road, 1 at home. Now we got a big one Saturday coming up against Duke. And I'm looking forward to that a lot, man.
It's going to be a good game. You talk about the defense. I think they announced only 18,000 in the Dome last night, but there were some defensive plays that had that place going wild. I know specifically in the past, what some people have had issues with is saying that Joe Girard isn't giving a certain amount of effort, doesn't look like he cares. I don't know about you, but last night, I don't know if it's the competition he's playing up to, if it's just noticing it in that one game, if it's the season coming to an end. he was everywhere on defense. There was the one play he gets hit in the face. He's kind of down for a little bit, doesn't get the call. And then he gets in position. He kind of knows he's in a good spot to get a makeup call. He flopped a bit, but he drew the big charge there. There were a bunch of other possessions, too, where he's on one side of the court, he's sprinting to the other. Even if it's a late contest, he's getting in there, making the shooters think about it. You said it was kind of I don't want to say a quiet offensive night for Joe, but compared to what we're used to, it was. But the effort that he was showing all night was just unreal. I mean, Jesse, too, you saw he took a charge on that big guy. I was nervous for a second. That was 7 feet hitting the ground real quick. And then at the end of the game, he did what he does, and he had a key block. You saw guy goes in for a little floater. Jesse blocks it effortlessly, and the guy's just looking at him like he kind of knew. But not only the defense, but just Coach Boeheim says you got to play one game at a time and not think about the next game. But these guys also know that they got to play with the urgency, like we had some of the coaches on saying, like you and Chris were saying, word of the day last week, urgency. Their pants were on fire, man. I was just really impressed by that specifically. They're playing like every single play. It could be their last. And some people are saying even if they beat Duke, who cares? But you can't think like that, because if you're thinking tournament, you let one slip, you don't have the momentum. But you think one game at a time, you go on a streak into the ACC tournament, that's when things start moving. And there's not a team in this conference I don't think they can beat. Not a single team.
Oh, I mean, it's wide open. The whole country is wide open. It's, especially the ACC. I mean, there's not one dominant team. I see Pittsburgh at the top, 12-3 right now. I think second place is Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. So it's wide open. But, to your point about Joe, he's been highly criticized. I think, if you ask me, probably one of the more criticized players in recent history at SU. I mean, for a guy that's, top 5 in all-time three-point makes, and I think almost 1,500 points in his career. I mean, yeah, some of it was warranted. In the past, you talked about it, Jordan. His energy and effort, his body language was kind of funky at times. When he was turning the ball over and when he was having a bad game. And I was one of those guys who would call him out, on those things. But I think overall, man, he's had an outstanding career at Syracuse, more than a lot of other players have had. You know what I mean? If you look at the stats, I mean, he's one of the guys that, he'll stand out to you. He's one of the best 3-point shooters in the country. Obviously top 2 3-point shooters in the ACC. And I think for him is he figured out, like, all right, what I got to bring every single game, what has to be a constant for me is that energy and that effort and the enthusiasm. We talked about it, the 3 E's: energy, effort, enthusiasm. If he can bring that to the table, we know we can make shots. He's worked on, his in-between game. You see him making mid-range pull-ups. You see him getting to the basket, using his body. And even the announcer last night, he said he's not the most athletic or fastest guy, but he's figured out a way how to get to the basket, how to get into that little mid-post area, use his body, use his angles, and, finish at the rim. So I think Joe's had a hell of a year. I think he has to be in consideration for an all-ACC team, just the way he's been playing. And to do it with a young team, the only veteran on this team is him and Jesse. For real, and with that playing experience as well, we're starting 3 freshmen, and most of the times, or a lot of the times on the floor, we have 4. So for him to lead this group and to play how he's playing, I think he's been outstanding. And I think a lot of the criticism that he's getting, especially this year and early on, yeah, he had a couple games where he didn't play good, but he's been super consistent for the most part of this year. And, he's a huge reason why, we're winning games and we're on this winning streak. Go back to Florida State on the road. He had 26 on the road. And, I saw your tweet, Jordan. It was funny talking about, people think that he can't play against ACC competition. These last couple games, if you look at the guards defensively, big, athletic, strong guards. Starting at Florida State, those guys are 6'5", 210. You know what I mean? And Joe's scoring, getting to the basket. he has a little bit of herky-jerky in his game now, and then you go to North Carolina State, obviously not 26 points, but without him on the floor, we don't win a lot of those games. I think, his presence on the floor brings confidence to the other guys. Speaking of, in the first half, just everybody was kind of missing shots on both sides of the floor. Joe comes down, hits a three at the top of the key, and then, later hits a little mid-range pull-up. I think that gives confidence to guys like Judah and guys like Chris Bell and Jesse as well to, when things aren't going well, when shots aren't falling, that we're still in this. He shows that, hey, we're still going to fight. We're still going to do it. And then second half, tables turn. You see Judah start getting to the cup, hitting mid-range, hits a three at the top of the key. And then obviously Jesse, 18 points, 16 rebounds. He was dominant on both ends of the floor. So Joe, besides his scoring, I think just his presence, his leadership, and he's being a little bit more vocal this year, Jordan. We talked about last year a lot. Those guys were really quiet. We were talked about in the free throw line. Where's that huddle at? I think these guys are much more talkative. They're communicating a little bit more. You're starting to see the zone moving a little bit better. And the biggest thing is the energy that these young fellas are playing with now. I think in the beginning of the year, right, they're kind of like easing their way in, trying to figure it out, and rightfully so. They're learning. They're freshmen, but now these guys are just going out there and playing, and playing against high level teams. This North Carolina State team was a good team. They'll be a tournament team with high level guard play, and then with a pretty legit big man. So to see these guys how they're playing. I think we have a bright future, obviously, going forward, but even going in against Duke in the rest of the season, it gives hope. It gives us a feeling of an NCAA tournament team, and even in the losses, Jordan, they haven't been by a lot. I think the only blowout is Illinois.
I know specifically for ACC games, like I want to say every game, it's been within 7 points every single game. It's not like they're getting run out of the gym and some people might say, 7. You got to remember too, you're fouling at the end. 7 is still a close basketball game. Like you're still in that game. I agree. Like I don't look at the ACC and see a team that I say Syracuse can't beat, like I mentioned. And NC State is a good team. I kind of had a feeling they were going to compete when, I love Vegas. They had Syracuse favored to win that game, and that kind of made me think something was going to happen. Before we leave Joe, a couple points about Joe. One, what I love that he's done this year, we talk about the inside game. It's common knowledge how good of a free throw shooter he is, and with how the game is called nowadays, I think he knows defenders do not want to foul him. You see him get in there, you see him with a little pump fake, and the defender knows, I can't jump or else he's getting 2 free points. So Joe uses that to get a good angle, make a shot, or find a guy who's open. Also with Joe, what I really like is, and you touched on it, every single guy on the team can be having a bad game. Joe's the guy who's like, I'm going to keep shooting, man. And he's just going to make one. And that changes the entire game. That gets everybody in it. But what I really think is contributing to how well Joe's playing now, and you've been high on Judah when other people weren't. I mean, everybody knows how good he is, but there were some people saying, he's not as good as they're saying. Well, he's showing what kind of player he is now. I think that's taken a ton of pressure off of Joe. I think Joe was going into games a month ago saying, I need to score 25 or we're not going to win. But now you see Judah, he's able to get to the basket. He's able to get angles to get off the backboard and put it in. He rises up for that jumper at the free throw line, which he's been more consistent with. And I mean, we even saw last night when he puts it all together, he can even hit a 3. And that's the thing that everybody's been wanting from him. You don't necessarily need it, but in today's game, it's so important. But I just think Judah's maturity, as you said, with the 20 and 9 and 1 turnover and his confidence are really allowing the rest of those guys, specifically Joe, to play with less pressure. So it's like I can focus on making the right play instead of being the hero, because it's not easy when you feel like the weight of the world's on your shoulders for all of those guys. And I think Joe and Jesse have both stepped up in that respect. You talk about them being more vocal. I think it oftentimes takes some sort of experience. I don't want to say a traumatic experience because it's the game of basketball, but they saw their season slipping away, and those guys realized, like Joe and Jesse, we're the senior leaders. We've got to step up. we've got to show these guys what to do. And I think the freshmen are really falling in line and buying into it as well. Were you surprised, though, to see all 5 of the starters played over 30 minutes? Benny was the only guy who scored off the bench. He had 1 bucket. Nobody else played more than 5 or 6 minutes off the bench. It's classic Syracuse basketball. We're finally back to what we were going to get. How did you think they adjusted last night with all of them playing together for so long?
Well, you just said it. I mean, that's classic Syracuse basketball. I mean, coach doesn't really go. This year is kind of an anomaly, right? I mean, he was still trying to figure out who he could trust and, what lineups mesh together. I mean, he never goes 8, 9 deep, 10 deep. He never. If at the most, he goes 7, and I think, last night was a case of Syracuse basketball, getting back to, trusting those guys that he knows are going to make plays for him on the court, play hard, on both ends, offense and defense, rebound, and, communicate. You talked about having that experience when, communicating and having that experience comes with it. But, I think that's just when you're playing sports, that's automatic. You can't be quiet out on the floor. You have to talk and you have to communicate. You're starting to see it from all 5 of those guys. If those guys weren't playing good, coach would have took him out of the game. He's starting to trust those guys, and those are the guys that are proving themselves. They're, we talked about Chris Bell. How does he stay on the floor? We know he could score the ball, but now he's bringing it on the other end. He's bringing energy and effort defensively. Malik Brown.
I got a question specifically about Chris for you before you move on. So after the game, post game, somebody asked him what else he's been doing because he only made 1 3, but he stayed on the floor. And he said he's been watching videos of Cole Swider because Cole had great rebound numbers that you might not expect from someone of his stature. I mean, he's a basketball player, but he's not like a huge dude. Chris Bell's been channeling his inner Cole Swider, but what specifically has Chris Bell been doing, like besides bringing the energy? Is there anything on defense you see that he's doing that he wasn't doing early in the season? Are you noticing a change in his attitude? Because you're right, he makes 1 3, he's on the floor for 30-plus minutes, and it's all smiles in the back.
Well, I mean, obviously his knowledge of the zone has gotten better. He's knowing the rotation. And now when you know the zone, the rotations, your effort is going to pick up a little bit because you know where to go. Early on in the season, he might have been stuck in a spot because he didn't know where to go. So now his knowledge of the zone is a little bit better. He's been watching film. You talked about him watching, Cole and being in position for better rebounding. So I think just his knowledge of the zone, it allows you to play a little bit harder and give a little bit more effort. But the biggest thing is I think he's just going out there and playing. He's not overthinking it. But that does go back to, knowing what you're doing on the floor and knowing what he has to do to stay on the floor. We know he could score the basketball, but are you going to rebound? Are you going to play defense? Because you could score 10, give up 20, and now we're down 10. You know what I mean? So I think for him, he took a big step up in that Florida State game, obviously having a career high with 6 rebounds, and he continued that effort and energy, last night against North Carolina State. He's a guy that has NBA potential, 6'7", can shoot the ball. Obviously he has to work on his handle a little bit, but he doesn't need a whole lot of handle. If he can get to a spot, 1-2 dribble pull up, that's all he's going to really need. At the next level, if he can get to that next level, which I think he can, he'll be like a 3-and-D guy. He's going to have to be a guy that really puts a lot of emphasis on the defensive side of the ball, because he's long, he's athletic, he can move. He's a guy that can, if he really, put his head down and locked in on that side, he can shut guys down. Offensively, it's going to take care of itself. He's a naturally gifted scorer, on the offensive end. We know that about him. I think what Coach Boeheim was preaching to him and the assistant coaches were preaching to him is we need you to give it on the defensive side of the ball. Now, when you're doing it on the defensive side of the ball, when you're rebounding, you're getting stops, you're getting deflections. That can make up for, a one-made 3 in a game, rather than, making 3-4-3 or 3-4 threes and going on the other end, missing the rotations, not boxing out and getting the rebounds. So I think, he's realized like, all right, I got to lock in on this side of the ball. Once I do that, the offense is going to take care of itself. And when you're getting those defensive stops, you're getting those rebounds. Now we can get out and run a little bit and really play Syracuse basketball. And I think he could flourish in transition, because now he's a guy that could really space the floor and get ahead of the defense and knock down open threes. And we all know if he gets an open look, just like Joe gets an open look, it's a good percentage that it's going to go in. So I think for him to lock in on that defensive side of the ball, rebound, get stops, that's helping his offensive game. And he's a freshman too, Jordan. So it's going to take him a little bit to realize that, or like, hey, this is my role. This is what I got to do. You got to understand, like, these guys are coming from high school where they were the man. They were scoring that ball all the time. And a lot of the time, they didn't even have to play defense because either the competition wasn't that good to where they had to, or the team was just, their team that they were playing on was just that good to where, they're up by, 25, 30 points. So they don't really got to focus on that side of the ball, So I think that it took them a little time to adjust. It took him a little time to get used to Coach Boeheim's coaching and how he approaches you. But you're really starting to see him grow and mature and really figure out, what he has to do to stay on the court. And you love to see it, man, because the kid is super talented. And besides him starting to lock in and figure it out, his body language is 10 times better. At times, you're going to get down.
He was the big recruit. Before Judah committed, he was the big recruit.
Right.
People forgot that really quick.
Right. And he's proven that he can shoot the ball. He can score the ball. But like we said, defensively, locking in on that side of the ball, being a complete player, you have to do that, especially if you're not starting right away. Right. I think for him, he continued to, because he was starting, but he wasn't playing starter minutes. Right, he was kind of splitting that with. Now you're starting to see, all right, he's a starter. He's playing those starter minutes because he's playing both ends of the floor. That's what you need to do, and he figured that out. Okay, this is what I need to do to stay on the floor.
Yeah, and I it's not this simple, but I feel like it really is. I mean, we saw the guy who we thought was going to be kind of starting either in his place or alongside him, Benny. It doesn't seem like Benny's as much adjusted to how Coach Boeheim coaches, but from being in the locker room at the beginning of the year, I remember, and this was a stupid question on my part. I'll start with that. I asked Chris after a game, how he thought he played, because he didn't have a great game, but he was out on the floor. I wanted to hear if he thought he did anything well, and he was unhappy. He kind of gave me a ask the coaches, and he wasn't vibing. Now, after every game, even if it's a loss, but I know it sounds goofy, but even his body language, it's so much different. He's usually the first one out now, sitting down to talk to in the media seats. He's all smiles. I really think he has adjusted well, like you said. He's bought into Coach Boeheim and everything he's done. People in the chat, I'll just bring it up now because we do got some chatters going on. Thank you for tuning in every Wednesday right here. Usually Chris Joe's in my seat, but stepping in today. Showbro Mike is talking about he's nervous Benny's transferring. We can be quick with this because we got a lot of good things to talk about with the game, but one thing that I've noticed that's odd about Benny, and I don't know what's going on. This isn't me laying into him. So he doesn't really talk with the media after the game, but he sits in the seats in the middle of the locker room. It's kind of an odd thing because it's he doesn't want to talk, but he's directly in the middle. And I don't know what's going on, but Coach Boeheim, and I've never seen this, before the players were out and talking, Coach Boeheim came out and he took about 30 seconds to just chat with Benny. I didn't hear the contents of the conversation, but that just struck me as weird. Have you ever seen anything like that? Is that normal for guys to sit in the middle of the media room but not chat?
Yeah, I never saw that. I mean, if guys aren't talking, then they're probably going to leave. I mean, I've done it a few times where you had a game where it was a tough game where you lost, and I'm shooting right out that back door, right out the back.
Oh, I know, because last night, the media wasn't even in, and we see Cy coming out, and he's got some wings. He's oh, y'all are waiting, and we're what kind of wings you got, Cy? And then JT walks out with his pizza, and so they knew. They're we don't have much to say. We're getting out of there. And previously, when Benny sat in the middle, I've asked him hey, could I ask you a couple questions? And he said no. So I was just curious if that's something you've seen, because it seems counterintuitive to sit in the middle of the room but not want to chat. I don't know what's going on, but
yeah, I never saw that. So he told you no, huh?
This was a few games back. I just got time for a couple questions, and he didn't want to. Which that's his right. That's why I'm asking, because I've never seen anything like that. And Showbro Mike mentions being worried about him transferring, and I don't want to be all negative. If we get the majority of these guys back, I think the team's in great position. Get a transfer or two, but it was odd. Yeah, Gavette, this was a few games back though, so like. Again, and that's not what we're reading into right now, but it is just an odd situation. Like, even when the team wins, it's a quiet night for Benny. Like, it's still just something's off. I don't know what it is, but I also I'll put it this way: I don't think he'd be sitting in the middle of the locker room with everyone around him if he were like, "I hate this team, I want to leave." You know, I think he'd be, like you said, either out of the room or he'd be at his locker by himself. So something tells me he's still in.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, first of all, we can't read the kid's mind. You know, if he's going to transfer, he's going to transfer. I don't think it's something that you want to worry about. You want kids who want to be here and want to get better and want to play. I mean, this season, we've had 6, 7 freshmen come in, right? It's a competitive sport. Your job is never locked in, especially when you have new guys come in, right? You got to compete for that spot. It just so happens that Malik Brown and Chris Bell are playing better. You know what I mean? That's how it goes. If you're not playing good, if you're not on the court and you're not adding value, you're not contributing in some way, you're not going to play. That's just how it goes. And I think, you know, Benny's a talented kid. He's one of the most athletic kids on the floor. But he still hasn't figured out how to use that ability. You know, you don't have to score the ball. You don't have to be the one, you know, shooting threes. Like, do you see how Malik Brown plays? Like, that guy adds value to the floor without having to really take any shots. And the shots that
hasn't had a bucket all year, probably any like further than 6 feet out. He's just like, I'm going to get down there. I'm either going to grab the board and put it up. I'm going to get in there and find Jesse, or I'm going to find somebody else whose man is occupied, and I'm going to sneak in behind him. But it's all layups. He's like the garbage man. He's just picking up the trash.
And so
it's just easy.
I think a lot of the times, you know, Benny sees those guys playing good in front of him, right? So it could be like I guess demoralizing a little bit, right? To where, oh man, these guys are playing, I'm not going to get any time, but he just said the whole mindset that he has is the incorrect mindset. You know what I mean? I'm gonna go out there and play as hard as I can, you know, for whatever amount of minutes that I get, and try to add value to this team. I'm a sophomore. I'm still learning. Obviously, you know, Coach wishes that his learning curve would have been a little bit faster, but man, it's tough to be able to be consistent, right? When you're not getting consistent minutes. So I understand him from that point. But when you do get on that floor, you got to go as hard as you can. We just said the 3 E's. And I say these 3 E's to all the kids that I deal with, to 7 years old, to pros. You have to be able to have energy, effort, and enthusiasm. Those are the 3 things that coaches can't teach. Like, those are the things that you can control. You have to bring that on the floor every single time that you get on. And usually when you do that, things happen, not only good for yourself, but for your teammates, because they feel that energy. They feel that effort and the enthusiasm. You know, we talk about Joe, you know, he got fired up off of throwing that oop to Chris Bell last night. Or I think it was Chris Bell when he caught that oop, right?
Yeah, Bell had the oop, and but as Melissa said, we'll give Benny credit. We were talking about a weird situation after during post game, but Benny, when he's on the bench, he clearly loves those guys. As we started with, like, the team love isn't the issue, as Melissa said. He's very engaged in the game. I was just curious about, you know, after the game.
Yeah, it's not about the team. We know they get together, and they you know, there's a couple of DC guys on the team, so it's not about him not liking the guys. It's about him individually, himself, how he's feeling about himself. And you could just tell if a guy's sitting in the middle of the locker room and he's saying, I don't want to talk to you, but you're putting yourself in the fire already by just being there. You know what I mean? If anything,
the thing is,
just get up and leave.
I'm telling you,
it's like that.
Benny, if this team is going to do what people want them to do, there's going to have to be a game where Bell or Brown aren't playing well, and Benny's going to have to come in and play more than 10 minutes in a game and grab a few boards and maybe score 8 or 10 points. Like, I know everybody's like, the only question people have about Benny is he going to transfer? Like, there's still a lot of season left, and he's a really athletic player. He has a ton of potential. We've seen he can even shoot a little bit. He's had highlight reel blocks. I truly believe for this team to really do anything special later on, there's going to be a game or two where he's going to need to come in and make an impact.
You talk about Boston College.
He has those 3 E's.
Talk about Boston College we know he's capable of doing it, but the thing is, are you capable of doing it consistently? And he hasn't shown that yet in his 2 years playing. And another thing is, we can't talk about transferring and doing all that right now. He's trying to make it to the NCAA tournament. So, like,
I agree.
You have people talking about
got to get the chat going.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I'm just saying, like, when you start talking about transfer and do that, now that energy goes into that locker room, because those guys hear that. Those guys read the chats. Those guys, look at Instagram, whatever people are saying. Those guys see that, so they're seeing that, Benny's, are you going to transfer? Are you going to do this? Same thing with Quadir. I think, you know what? Quadir's a freshman.
Yeah, Dome Nachos was asking about him, too. What do you think about Quadir's kind of, I don't want to say a fall from grace because he didn't do anything wrong, but he's not seeing the court as much.
Yeah, but he's a freshman, and he's in a loaded position, right now, to where guys are playing better than him and playing ahead of him. Talk about being able to get that experience, right? And having that experience and, knowing the zone and knowing what you're doing when you're out on the floor and what can I do to add value to this team when I'm on the floor. He still has to figure that out as well. But you still see him on the bench clapping, cheering, bringing good energy. That's one thing I love about Quadir. Like, he has good body language still. At times, yeah, you're going to get frustrated because you're not playing, you're not in the game. You feel like you can contribute. But he for the most part, his body language is good. He's on the bench. I can't speak for Benny. I haven't seen Benny on the bench doing that. I'm sure he has, but a lot of the talk,
he gets hyped. You can tell
which is good.
He loves the environment. He loves the guys. He loves being a part of a winning culture. That's not in doubt at all. Seems like a great teammate. With everything we're saying, seems like a great teammate.
And at the end of the day, it's his choice. Does he want to be here or not? That's up to him. And I'll tell you this, you go to another school, you go to another school high level, you're going to deal with the same thing. If you want to transfer, you better go down a level if you want to play. I mean, go back to all the transfers, the past years from Syracuse. Man, nobody's done good wherever they went. For real, you go to Jalen Carey, you talk about, the big guy, Frank, from last year. Who else transferred?
Frank Anselm.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about
Anselm. I got confused as Brent butchers it.
But you look up those stats. These guys are averaging 3-4 points. It's not always greener on the other side. That's what you got to know. Like, sometimes guys might not play until their junior year, for real. And I always tell this story.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia beat LSU last night. Frank, he did play 20 minutes, 4 points, 4 rebounds. But again, that's 4 points, 4 rebounds. It's not like he went there and he's averaging double-doubles,
What I'm saying is, okay, quick story. I talk about D-Nick all the time, Demetrius Nichols. Like, he didn't play at all his first 2 years. And then that junior and senior year, when it was his time, he stepped in and he was all Big East. Junior and senior year. His senior year, he's player of the year. Like, it's not always like everybody's path is a little bit different, right? You can't compare yourself to, Benny and compare yourself to Malik or Malik. You can't do that. You got your own path and your own journey. Like, everybody figures it out a little bit different, right? Everybody learns a little bit different, maybe slower, maybe faster, right? They might click, that zone might come a little bit more, right? I think the biggest thing is to accept that within yourself. Accept that, all right, this is what I got to do to get on the floor. All right, coach doesn't need me to score the ball. We got Joe, Judah, and Jesse. If I get 8 to 10 points or 7 points, great. But I really need to get 9 rebounds, 2 blocks, and 4 to 5 deflections a game. That's what your mindset has to be. you could just see. And as a player, I get the fans saying this. They talk, they see him cheering on the bench. I understand that. But from a guy who's been in the heat of it, in the fire, you have to be able to go out there and add value to what coach wants you to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was a guy, coach needed me to score the ball. He needed me to score the ball. Go out there and score the ball. Benny, I need you to go out there and rebound and play defense. If he tells you, like, don't shoot the ball and you shoot a wide open shot or, and you miss it, well, there's a reason why coach told you not to shoot the ball. So I just think it's his mindset, right? It's his mindset and his approach to the game. Like, he's going out there and try to do things sometimes that we don't need him to do. Go out there and be great at what we need you to do. And I think if he can focus on that and try to be consistent going forward with that, it'll be the better for him. But if he keeps trying to do stuff and show people that, I could shoot or I could dribble and do that, he's going to struggle.
Guy, we haven't talked about Jesse much. He did exactly what they need him to do. 16 boards. I mean,
he's
that's
been awesome.
Big time. He played all 40 minutes. It's huge. G-Mac taught him well, man. He drained that. I haven't heard the Dome that loud. Like, I don't want to say all year because there have been some bigger crowds, big moments at the end, but like, that was a pop. That was like if The Rock came back at WrestleMania, that's what that was like. The whole crowd just went crazy, man. Judah was laughing about it after the game. He's like, yeah, Jesse practices those like in practice, not from that deep, but he can shoot a little bit. But all jokes aside, the thing with Jesse that he did well, so it kind of hides it. He's shooting less than 50% from the field on mostly like bunnies still. I don't know what can be done to figure that part of it out. Coach Boeheim said after the game that Jesse's balance and getting knocked out of his position needs to get a little bit better. But
what
adjustments?
Well, you know how you do that, how you focus on your control and balance, right? You have to have leverage. You got to get low. You got to get low. You got to play a little bit lower.
I can get low. That's a little tougher for Jesse, though.
Yeah, but he can bend down. He knows how to bend his knees. Obviously, and I told him this at Florida State, because even at Florida State, he was around the rim. He was missing little bunnies. A lot of the times he's there and going up and going backwards instead of going with your shoulder back into the chest towards the rim. Did you see on the last play when he got the and one? He did a great job of getting low and going into his defender to finish and go up and over. That's why he got the foul call.
And I'll say that was a cheap foul, I'll say. But like you said, if you go at the guy instead of going back, Jesse knows this from the defensive end. You get those calls. It didn't seem like much of a foul to me watching, but he got the call, he made the bucket, and he got the free throws.
But you got to understand.
Yeah, you got to go straight up.
A lot of those calls, might be there, if he calls, but it's the way you approach the attack. You know what I mean? So if I'm attacking and I'm going backwards or side to side, the ref's not going to give me that call. If I go attack mode towards the defender and I look like I'm being aggressive towards the rim and, I have a little bit of contact or bump, it's going to be more so that they do give you the call. Look at Judah, how he attacks the rim. He never falls away. If he does, it's going to be something creative, but he always attacks going towards the basket. Speaking on that last possession where he got to the free throw line, he went into the defender, hung, and he had to adjust, and then he still was able to get it up and get the foul call. Jesse, and I get, like, we go back to centers talking about AO and all those guys shoot 65% from the field, but Jesse's getting a lot more attempts than those guys were too. Let's put it that Jesse's. Last game he almost had 14 attempts. He's a guy that's seeing the ball more offensively than those guys have. You know what I mean? I think.
Yeah, Coach Griffin mentioned it yesterday too. He's not used to being a feature guy. This is new to him, having teams focus on denying him the ball, stopping him from getting hot. So,
Jordan,
new role, like you said.
I was listening to the game, to the announcers, and at the end of the game, they're talking about they need to get it down to Jesse Edwards for a low post feed. You know what I mean? So the announcers are saying, like, this is a go-to guy. This is a guy that we need to get the ball to at the end of the game. And I think, at times, but more so, I feel more comfortable with Judah making a play and just kind of getting it off to Jesse, and then Jesse, getting it off the rim for an offensive rebound. But you know what? When Jesse plays low and he has his leverage, he's 100 times better. You're gonna miss some bunnies sometimes. That's just how it goes. He missed the alley oop that should have been an and one. He missed the other alley oop where he just went up and he could have put it in and right before the timeout. So yeah, it's definitely some bunnies that he missed. But I tell you what, he makes up for a lot of that on the other side of the ball. Just his presence on the ball. Even if he's not blocking shots. And we got to talk about this more because I don't know if people understand. Even when he's not blocking shots, he's changing shots. He's making guys think twice about going in there. You know what I mean? It's going to take a little bit more time for a guy to get a shot off. Speaking of the guy who was in the middle, they put Smith and Joyner in the middle a lot last night in the high post. They didn't just make a quick decision when they get in there. They got to jab, dribble, because Jesse Edwards is right there. And I tell you, just from playing, that throws a guy off. It throws your rhythm off because now a lot of guys like to go into their jab shot or jab one dribble, whatever it is. Now you got to add a couple jabs, add a couple dribbles. It messes up your whole rhythm as a player. So, Jesse, even when he's not blocking shots, he's changing the game with his presence in there. And another thing, we talked about communicating. He's being a little bit more vocal. He got the and one and he screamed. He showed a little bit of emotion, a little bit.
He's got that swag this season, man. He's carrying himself different.
You can see it
in a good way.
And if I'm 7 feet and I'm one of the go-to guys, I'm having some swag too. I'm feeling myself a little bit. I'm actually trying to rip somebody's head off in there when I get the ball. I'm trying to dunk every single thing, and I'm letting them know I'm the ACC leader in block shots. I'm top in double doubles in the league. I'm one of the best centers in the country, and I'm gonna say that right now. He is one of the best centers in the country. Hey, look at the stats. Look at how he's been playing. You know what I mean? And we're not giving this team enough credit for how they're playing this year. I know, we're used to getting, we have 10 losses, 16-10, but these guys have been playing 3 and 4 freshmen. No other team in the country is doing that, for real. I mean, if they are, let me know. I don't see any other team playing that many freshmen. I mean, these guys have been thrown into the fire, and even when we lose games, we talked about it early on, Jordan, it's not by a lot. We're not losing it. It comes down to 1 or 2 plays at the end, and as freshmen, like, I'm not saying you can accept that, but you understand, like, all right, damn, he's still trying to figure it out. Talk about Judah at Miami. He had those 3 straight possessions where, he had a turnover, missed shot, whatever. Now you talk about last night, North Carolina State. He's winning the game for her. He's still in the game. 20 points, 9 assists.
One play I noticed, too, at the end of the game, right, there was, I think it was at 72-72 or 73-72, Judah's taking the ball down the court, and I said to myself, I'm like, this is Judah's play. And I'm not saying it's passive. It was clearly the right play, but I was surprised to see the immediate play was he just got it right to Jesse. And I think that shows a level of maturity, too, where it's like, I don't have to go in there and draw 2 guys to me. I don't have to rise up and make a shot here. I can just get it to Jesse. He's been hot and see what he can do. And he did. I agree. Judah had a big part in them winning the game, but it wasn't just the stats and everything. It was, you mentioned his maturity. That's a very mature play to say, I'm going to put this in the hands of my senior center.
That's part of it. Trusting your teammates, right? I think early on, like, he might didn't have that trust that he has now for his teammates, right? And I guess rightfully so to a certain extent, because when I'm passing you the ball and you're not making nothing happen, shit, I'm taking over too. I'm going ahead and doing it myself because I have that confidence in myself. He's fearless. He's tough. Just to go ahead and do. So I get it to a certain extent, but to win games consistently and to get everybody on board, you need to make them feel comfortable. So he's doing that now. Like, he's a guy who, man, you got him, I'm going to give it to you again. I don't care if you miss it. I'm going to look at you. If you open, I'm going to get it to you. He's starting to have that trust in his teammates. And now when, his teammates feel that he has that trust in them, they're going out there playing harder for him. You know what I mean? Jesse's going to be, give me the ball. I got you. I'm going to come down and set that screen hard as shit for you next time, Judah. See me roll into the basket. You know, that's not open, Chris Bell. I'm lifting out of that corner. I'm going to knock down this shot for you. And Judah, you're going to make that pass, and he's going to knock it down. So it's a trickle-down effect from that, from just trusting your teammates. You give them more confidence, and in return, you're going to give yourself more confidence to make a play and to find that open teammate. I mean, I don't know about you, Jordan. So Judah, I'm a big fan of Judah. So
I was seeing him 45 in mock drafts yesterday.
Yeah, and I don't even it's because his shot, right? They're worried about his shot. That's what the NBA's were. Everything else, like he got.
That's literally all it is.
That's literally.
Which, by the way, best shooting coaches in the world, they can teach you to shoot a little better in 6 months' time. And they know that.
Especially when that's going to be your job. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could be at the gym every single day. That's all you got to do. And it's not like his shot is, okay, I see him shoot. He got a little side spin. I did too on my shot. You know, that's all it is getting his hand under the ball and then working on that guy hand, shooting and just repping it out. Like this guy, you know, speaking of Judah, you haven't seen a point guard come through like him in a while, man. I'm just talking about like guys like Johnny Flynn. Like he has that. It's not only his play, but how he carries himself, his charisma, his confidence. Like you see him make a shot and he giving you that look. He getting it. Like that gets me going. Even just
Bro has $1 million smile in post game. Like he just looks like a star.
He has.
I was almost blinded by the earrings that were right at my eye level last night. He's just so quiet and mild mannered, but he still exudes confidence. No, he has star written all over.
Yeah, he's an NBA player. I don't care about the mock drafts and all that. I just think this kid, he's tough, he's fearless, like he's not afraid of the moment. Like he takes all of it. Like speaking of like Miami, the games when he messed up or turned it over, he took all that. Like he didn't run from that. Like I know when you had some interviews with him, he answered all those questions. Like and for a freshman to be able to do that, you know, to own up to, you know, his mistakes, that says a lot about that kid. And as a freshman, being the guy who has the ball in his hands the majority of the game, like you could say that this kid is the leader of the team. Like he's the leader of the team. I want to give it.
It looks like at post game, they all go to him. There's like 30 people around him. Like last night, there was one point Joe had 3 people filming him, and Judah's literally got like 30 people around him. It's crazy.
I mean, people know it. They could see it. They could feel it. We're talking about it right now. That was the same type of thing Johnny Flynn had. You know, and I don't want to compare him to Johnny Flynn because Johnny Flynn that was a bad boy right there. So that was a bad boy. I'm just telling you that right there. But
NBA talent. Tons of NBA scouts at that game last night.
Yeah,
and they keep moving me to the bad seats because tons of scouts.
No, but I mean, and they're coming for a reason. Like the guy is an NBA talent. And, you know, he showed that, and I think the biggest thing is that from those mistakes early on, he's shown that he can learn quick. Like quick, you know what I'm saying? Like in the NBA, you got to learn on the fly. You got to learn quick. You don't have time to you know 1 or 2 years, because if you take that long, you out of there. The next guy coming in and replacing you. So I think that's a big thing for NBA scouts to see is like, all right, he learns quick. He can learn on the fly. From this game to that game, he's improved. He's gotten better. From the beginning of the year till now, like it's night and day of his decision making. You know, against the team at North Carolina State, who those guards will get up in you and play, make you play. Physical, athletic, like Joyner and Smith. Those guys are good guards. He had 1 turnover. He has the ball in his hands the whole game. That's hard to do. I don't think people really understand that's hard to do, to run the offense, get guys in there, and then still score the ball. That's tough to do, man. I'm a big fan of my guy.
He's showing out, man. We got 5 minutes left, and thanks to everyone in the chat tuning in. We do have to touch on one thing, just because we were very vocal about it against North Carolina. So we'll come to the other side, and I'll just get your thoughts on it. Free throws. NC State, 3 for 5. Syracuse, 16 for 17. Jesse shot about double the free throws NC State did. After the game, North Carolina State head coach Kevin Keatts was quoted as saying he was very disappointed in the officiating. Quote, "I'd just like our guys to have a legitimate shot to win the game at the end. Unfortunately, things didn't go our way." There was also a video of the post-game handshake where something was said between Keats and Boeheim,
Yeah.
which prompted Jim to give him the old hold your horse's hand.
Oh,
That's what I've been calling it. Internet lip readers think that what Jim said is something along the lines of, I've been fucked by those guys before, too.
Right.
Did you... I mean, it's hard to say we didn't notice it. Watching the game live, I didn't necessarily notice. I did notice, like I said earlier, it seemed like there were some cheap foul calls getting inside. But, like, did the officiating really stick out to you at all in that game, or not really?
Every game, the officiating.
The disparity's crazy.
Yeah, we've been on that side as well. We've been on that
absolutely.
side. I mean, every team has experienced that. You know what I mean? Obviously, we're at home. Kevin Keats, he's a great coach. He could say, we're on the road. They're getting the calls. We've been in that same position as well. That's what Coach was saying. Yeah, I fucking experience, regardless of home or away, they've all had, we've all experienced games where the refs were bullshit. You got to the free throw line way more than we did. You can nitpick all you want about that. But at the end of the day, they turned the ball over at crucial times, right? They didn't get defensive stops that they needed to get. We scored more points than them. Shit, that was a foul at the end of the game. My man bodied him, and he was able to adjust, and then he put his hands down. Is it like could it be a call where it goes the other way? Yeah, but he called that. You know what I mean? That's just what it is. Like it's coach's job to complain about it. Yeah, they complain about it. You could send the tape back into the ACC refs and let them look at it. I was at Detroit Mercy when I was at Mike Davis used to every single game, home or away, he'd send in the tape to the Horizon League commissioner or whatever.
Like every
fucking game. So it's not like
you win by 20 and he's still chopping up bad
about
calls.
The fucking 3-4 calls that he didn't get. Like you got to understand, these officials they're good officials, but they're gonna miss calls, man, or they're gonna get a call where it could have went the other way. Whatever it is, man. At the end of the day, Syracuse played better. You know what I'm saying? They played better. They wanted to get if you look on the stat sheet, North Carolina, they out-rebounded. In the beginning of the game, a lot of those rebounds were, the offensive rebounds. They had 16, right? So you look, they had more assists. And a lot of that times, you look at that stat sheet and it can be misleading, right? Obviously, the rebounds is a big thing. You don't want to get out-rebounded that much. But, like, they got the assists they had. They had 21 assists. When you're playing against the zone, you have to move the fucking ball. So you're gonna get assists, you know what I mean? And let's talk about us getting out in transition. Like we had almost 20. I don't know how many transition points. We almost had maybe 19, 20. Let's talk about how well we played in the second half. Getting out in transition, get ahead of their defense. They didn't get back. You know what I mean? So you look at all these things. At the end of the day, we made more plays than they did when we had to. The refs. Also, yeah,
whatever. You shoot 19 more threes, you're not going to go to the foul line as many times as the other team, too. They chucked up 34 threes, and they only made 4 more than Syracuse did. They shot 50.
And their best 3-point shooter made 1. He was 1 for 9. You know what I mean? The guy Smith was 4 for 12. Joyner was 3 for 9. I think a lot of those shots they had were wide open. In the first half, you had a lot of wide open threes, and they just missed it. I mean, that first half was, for a majority of that first half, that was ugly between both teams. Shots just weren't dropping. But, I mean, we could blame the refs all day, man. But at the end of the day, who made more plays? Who got on the floor? Who wants it a little bit more? That's what it's going to come down to. I mean, we can nitpick all day. Coach Keats, you could nitpick all day. Take that L.
Hey, that's what it'll come down to Saturday, who's making the most plays. And we'll have you on post-game for that. We'll talk about that game Wednesday. But before we sign off, Eric, anything you got going on that you're looking to promote? What's good with you, man?
I always got something going on, Jordan. I mean, I got my spring break camp coming April 3rd through the 6th. You can check it out at ED23 Hoops to register your kids. Come and get a little bit better. A lot better, matter of fact, but not only in hoop, off the court. We teaching the habits that you need to be successful in life. And then we have tryouts for ED23 Hoops. March 4th is the girls and March 5th is the boys at Solvay Community Center. And again, you can find all that information on social media, Twitter, Instagram at ED23 Hoops. Yeah, man, we just trying to help out and bring opportunities to the kids here in the community and, outside the community. So, we're going to keep bringing it to them. We're going to keep bringing that fire. And I always got those 3 E's with me: energy, effort, enthusiasm. Because if you don't, then that's when you dead. So, yeah, man, we're trying to do as much as we can. And we will be back Saturday. I'm going to be back on post game. I didn't make it. My daughter had a Valentine's Day concert. I had to check that out. So, but I will be back Saturday.
Let's get it, man. Well, until then, looking forward to it. Hopefully we got another win to discuss, but we'll find out in due time, man. Another episode of the Devo Show for Eric Devendorf. I'm Jordan Capozzi.
You know it.
Thanks for watching on QSportsTalk.com, and come back in an hour. Orange Nation with Stephen Pauly will be live for you.
Let's get it.